All right, so the first one, what's the difference between underinsured coverage and uninsured coverage? And this is a really good one for you in particular because the Lancaster market is somewhat unique in that there's one hospital. I don't think it's any secret that the bills from that hospital tend to be relatively high, oftentimes exceeding what are minimum liability limits.
True.
And in Lancaster, there's probably a higher percentage of vehicles on the road with minimum liability limits. So this becomes relevant fairly often in Lancaster. Let's talk about this. What's the difference between underinsured coverage and uninsured coverage?
So it may appear like it is
because they look awfully similar.
Yeah, it may appear that they're very similar, but they're actually very different. So first of all, let's also talk about the shortened name for these, which is UM and UIM, which only makes it more confusing. So uninsured motorist coverage is going to cover you as the insured driver if someone else causes injury to you from an accident or to your property and is uninsured, meaning they do not have insurance, or in a hit-and-run situation. Okay, those cases, the uninsured, it's even hard for us to say, uninsured motorist coverage is going to pay for any injuries you may have and damage to your vehicle. It's also required by law in South Carolina. So in South Carolina, the liability limit, the minimum limits is $25,000 per accident, or $25,000 per person, $50,000 per occurrence. And so the UM requirement is the same. Okay. The underinsured motorist coverage is going to cover you if someone causes damage to you or injuries to you that exceed their limits. So let's just use your hypothetical. If someone is injured in an accident in Lancaster, goes to MUSC Lancaster, let's say has a $50,000 ER bill, and maybe continues to go on to treatment at a physical therapist or an orthopedic surgeon or anything like that. Let's just say they have $75,000 in damages. Well, the person who hit them had $25,000. So their limits of liability do not fully reimburse the injured party for their damages. So the underinsured coverage will be carried by the injured party on their insurance policy and would help cover some of those damages.
So, in other words, that person is underinsured for the loss that they've suffered. It never ceases to amaze me, though, how people either don't know that they do have underinsured coverage or think they have it and they don't.
Exactly.
What's unique about South Carolina is that it's not required for the motorist to carry, but it is required for the insurance agent to offer it to the motorist.
If you can call it that.
If you can call it that. But really, in practice, what that means is they sign a piece of paper that maybe was explained to them, maybe wasn't.
Yeah.
And they sign that piece of paper and they either reject the coverage or they purchase the coverage. Mm-hmm. And I think most people don't really understand what it is that they're rejecting or purchasing.
They really don't, because I feel like I'm not speaking for all insurance agents, but I feel a lot of them, people walk in and they say they want full coverage.
Or it's even worse. Most people buy their insurance online now.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get online and you buy your coverages. It's not like someone is sitting there explaining it to you. You either read it all or you don't. And most people, if they're buying it online, are probably trying to be efficient, so they may not read all of it. And we sort of take for granted that people understand what coverages there are out there. But in most cases, people just don't understand. But what's really cool is that if someone was not presented with the coverage, we can get that policy amended.
That's correct.
So if they have not signed a rejection of the coverage and the insurance company is not able to present it, we can then get the policy amended to include it.
In fact, that's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you as well.
Definitely.
An insurance adjuster will tell us that it's not included, or it may not even be included on the declarations page.
Right.
And once we request the offer rejection, then we find out that it was not presented, or they can't find it in their file.
Right.
And so
we can amend it.
We can amend the policy.
And then magically, there's underinsured coverage.
Yeah. But I think, going back to why people don't necessarily have it, I think, you and I've talked about this before. It's like anything you do, you're upsold. If you buy a car, you're upsold to buy the higher trim packages. If you buy a piece of furniture or a television at Best Buy, you're going to be talked into buying the most expensive thing. And I think people kind of reject that. And I think
thinking that they're being upsold.
Thinking they're being upsold for something they don't need. And it couldn't be further from the truth.
Right. Everyone should have underinsured.
Everyone should have underinsured.
Especially because the cost of medical care has far outpaced the minimum liability limits.
Oh, by far.
Maybe whenever the $25,000 limit was first discussed and debated, maybe that was sufficient to cover most medical emergencies. But you really can't get in and out of an emergency room anymore for less than just the minimum liability coverage.
No.
And I don't see that changing anytime soon. But one thing you can control if you're a purchaser of insurance policies is to just purchase more underinsured coverage, especially if you have children, if you have a family.
Yep.
You really want to make sure everyone's adequately
yourself.
protected. Exactly. That's what it's for. Honestly, we could talk all day just about this one, but I think we have several more. So,
I do want to say one more thing about it. The other thing, too, is both of these coverages are portable in South Carolina, meaning they're going to follow you even if you weren't in the covered vehicle.
So if you're riding with someone else, I think it's
or if you're riding, in someone else's or another person's car or another car that you own or something like that. And they're also sometimes stackable, which we won't get too far into the weeds of that. But, you can sometimes stack these coverages to increase the amount of coverage you have for yourself in case you're in a catastrophic accident.
Yeah, and that's a game changer. That's where it really rears its head, is in catastrophic cases.
Yes.
Where there's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of bills
and
$25,000 in coverage.
Yep.
That's a very difficult conversation to have with anybody.
It is.
But it's made a little easier when there's another layer of coverage there.